Maybe that's what makes me sad. That's the part that makes me sad, that I've now evolved and matured, that I think I would be able to talk to my father, because I couldn't even have an open conversation. Not even like, oh, so tell me about your childhood. I couldn't have any communication with my dad in that way. So that's what makes me sad and makes me cry. That I wish he was here, because now I'm in a chapter that I think he would be a little bit more open, and I would be not as, I don't know cómo se dice, as reserved.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to Heal, Laugh, and Rise Up. I'm Jessie, your badass two-time cancer fighter, soul work mentor, and your favorite Latina.
Hi, and I'm Amber, a chemo nurse by day, caretaker to my husband by night, all while being a scrunchy mom.
We're here to talk all about our traumas and how we use them to grow, honey.
So grab your drink and let's get into today's miracle and shit show.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, comadre.
What's up, coma?
Coma. I like coma.
Coma.
Because I think about like comida. I'm going to try really hard not to laugh in this episode.
Okay, because then you're going to have
a cough attack, and I don't want to sound like a 80-year-old lady from Brooklyn who smokes a pack of cigarettes a day.
Do your best Brooklyn accent. Okay, never mind.
No.
That was a great impression.
Why don't we do that next week? Happy Tuesday, girl. Happy, yeah, happy.
Good.
A little sick, but happy.
Good.
Yeah, I was sick last week, and you know what? When I was sick in bed, instead of the old me that would be very upset about it, I was contemplating life and just thinking about things. So I used it as a positive.
That sounds like not a positive thing.
Really?
Yeah, I was contemplating life.
Oh, really? Really? I don't know.
When I hear those words, I think of like, I was contemplating like if life is worth it.
Oh, no. Oh, contemplating. Maybe I don't know the definition of it. Pensando? Estaba pensando. I was thinking.
Yeah. Mucho mejor.
Mucho mejor. Wow. I think we're going to come back and talk a little bit about grief today.
Yeah, that was a good amount of feedback and so much more we want to say. It's really hard to put it in 20 minutes, which is why it's turning into 30, 35, 40 minutes. But I think, we'll do a part 2. And of course, we'll come back to grief again and again and again.
Yeah, some of the responses were very open, very vulnerable. And it's beautiful to have people open up and share their thoughts about grief, because I don't really know how to navigate grief, but we're all going to figure it out together.
I really appreciate everyone who's reached out to say something, whether it just be I heard and I'm sorry, or this made me think of when my mom passed, or all these different outcomes that people, like their thought, where their brain went. And then you guys sharing with us, I really appreciated that. That made it a lot, that's why I shared.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for people who are close to me and I didn't share with them on a personal level, like I didn't call them and say, hey, I just miscarried. That's really hard to talk about.
Yeah.
That's the point I'm trying to get to, is like grief sucks and is really shitty. And hopefully one day we'll all be on a level where when something crummy happens in my life, I feel comfortable coming to them. I hope no one took it personally, finding out something so intense through a podcast. And I think I was 28 weeks before I ever posted a picture of myself pregnant. Like, I don't tell people even the good stuff.
Right.
Because of my trauma.
Because of the trauma.
Because I'm so scared of getting hopeful. So I got a lot of backlash when I was pregnant with Mackenzie, because everyone's like, oh, I didn't even know you were pregnant. Oh, I found out through social media. Well, that's good news. And I was hesitant and I didn't know how to put words to it. And here's bad news. And it's because even when I have good news, I'm grieving all the trauma.
Yeah.
So it's hard to talk. So if you got hurt, I'm sorry. That's the reason I'm working on myself.
Yeah.
Please just come talk to me. That's how we make this easier.
With no judgment, right? With no judgment. It's hard.
Yeah.
People, even if they are your closest friends, these things are not easy.
Yeah, see, you said something earlier, and I don't know if you remember, but it was something to the effect of like how to support people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's by supporting them through what they need,
Yes.
not what you think is right, or
Right.
something like that.
Yes.
I don't know how you worded it.
Yes.
But that's what it made me think of, is like, not just no judgment, but letting people like do what they naturally feel they need to do. I think my trauma has taken me so beyond natural. Like, I don't want to be all quiet and hush hush.
Mm-hmm.
And supporting me to what I want to do. I want to tell people. I want to scream these things off the top of the highest mountain I can find. But I'm not comfortable doing it. So people could support me by doing that. And others, but that's what I naturally feel like I want to do, but I don't do it. So you could support me by helping me do that. And that's just an example. But, I think some people feel very angry, and instead of telling them not to be angry, supporting them through their anger until they get to the next step.
Right.
Or whatever it is.
Supporting is helping them find their own solutions.
Was that what you said earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was just
supporting is allowing your loved ones to make their own choices and holding space for them. Holding space pretty much means just being there with them and listening. And we're not active listeners. We're very quick to say, well, you should have done that. You could do this, blah, blah, blah. Like,
even when you're trying to support someone, you still might come over telling me what to do.
Yeah, because we're conditioned that way.
Yeah,
because that's how it happened to us. But we got to break the cycle, because that's not helpful.
Yeah,
and I think we should have it. We should have an episode touching, a little bit on support and how we can change, or what smaller things we can do to start supporting people in their choices. I did have a lot of feedback. I had feedback from a lot of people grieving. And
what did that make you feel, like when these people came and told you their stories, or how they related, or just input on what you said?
Gosh, it makes me feel human, because I feel like I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
I had somebody come to me and share their mother passing away, and them not being able to have the time to cry really good and grieve, because they're a mother. They need to be strong for their children. They don't want to see their kids crying. And it's like, then you feel like a horrible daughter, because then you feel like, did I love my mom? Why am I not crying hysterically every day? I don't have the answers to that, other than maybe we can start making a change of letting our children see us grieve. But we didn't see our parents grieve. I never saw my mom grieve or my dad grieve. I don't know what that looks like. Did you?
I mean,
I mean, when they did pass away, when they lost their parents.
Yeah, like I every now and then, like, I mentioned going to a funeral, a funeral and memorials and stuff with my mom, and seeing her cry, and seeing my aunt cry, but I don't think we ever like debriefed after, for lack of better words. Like, we didn't really talk about what we just experienced.
Only when it happened, and then the days went on.
They just cried, and I was there, and then we just moved on, and it's just like, oh, okay. Or even not death, but like divorce in the family. Watching someone that I considered a really awesome aunt no longer part of my life. It's just like, that's not your aunt anymore. Like, no, it is. And I still see her as an aunt. And it just makes me, I think that's something I never grieved.
You didn't allow yourself to even go there.
No.
Why do you think that is?
I wasn't a kid. I was a young adult. And I feel like, me personally, I look back and I'm like, oh, I should have known better. I was an adult. But at the same sense, you're so influenced, and no one talks about what's going on. They're rolling with the punches, right? Their divorce is shitty, and there's so much grief in divorce. And when you're the one going through a divorce, you have all the anger and bargaining and acceptance and all these depression and all these stages that you're cycling through constantly.
Right.
And everyone around you is just watching and maybe supporting. And we can go into a divorce talk another day. But as the bystander in the family, not the children of the divorce, just someone else in the family, like that person could have been dead to me.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds horrible,
Yeah.
but like they're just cut off communication. Don't see her at holidays anymore.
Mm.
See the rest of the family. That makes you think of this person, but they're not there.
Mm.
And in a sense, like you don't even want to bring them up because you don't know what people are going to react in. And I think that's the same thing with death or with someone's old self. You don't want to talk about something someone was known for doing because it might get awkward. If someone's a veteran now and they've always been away in the military and now they're sitting at the table, the mom of that person who remembered crying every holiday might not feel comfortable saying it feels so good to have you home this holiday. Like they might not be able to put those words out because there's so much grief feelings attached to it. So we just pretend it never happened.
Yeah.
Which is so fucked up.
And you keep burying it.
Yeah, and it's
and
like
burying it.
What? Why aren't we talking about it so that it's not awkward at the holidays 8 months later? Like let's talk through it.
And you don't feel like you're picking a side. It's because you get to
the other thing.
express your emotions. I mean, a divorce affects the whole entire family, whether you are the cousin or the sister, not just necessarily the one going through the divorce. And it's like, okay, it happened. Now everybody move on. But everybody has feelings that they would like to share and they don't. And we don't share these feelings because, number one, we don't want to be ridiculed. We don't want, certain people to think that we're picking a side or that, we don't care about the person being divorced, because we do care. We do care. We love both people, but a divorce is a major grieving element to life. And why can't we say, I miss so and so?
You might be picking a side, like you just said.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I had recently, there's been divorce in my family, and nobody wants to talk about it because then, we pick a side, and that's not the case. There is no sides.
No, and I think
there is no sides.
Has to do with those cycles of grief that people are feeling. The depression, the anger, the bargaining. It's crazy to me how this grief in our life is so common.
And nobody talks.
And no one talks about it.
Nobody talks. It's the number one thing amongst many things in life that connect us together.
Yeah, but
we are all connected through grief in some form. Some form.
For sure. And I think that's why everyone feels so alone, because those times when we can connect, we don't talk about it. So now we're pretending we're not connected.
Yeah. Is it hard to pick up? It's hard to pick up the phone and call your bestie and say, I'm so pissed off I lost my mom. I'm so angry that she's not here to see my child go to school, or me getting married, or me having a baby.
I think it's easy to pick up the phone and tell my bestie.
Is it good?
I don't think it'd be easy to tell my siblings. Right? Like if your mom passed, or like, I don't know. My mom's still alive. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
But I think that's where, like, why is that? For me, it wouldn't be. Why is it when the person is closer to the situation?
Yes.
It's harder to talk to them.
Yeah, like we said in a mini episodes back, that I can tell anything to the grocery lady, but I can't call my sister and say, I miss our relationship. And I'm saying in the podcast, hopefully she would listen. And she knows. But that's so stupid. Like I got to practice what I preach. Yeah. But it's hard.
It is hard.
It's fucking hard. It's not easy. Me coming out here and saying it is hard. Now doing it is even harder.
Yeah. Yeah, just saying it on a podcast.
I'm not going to be rejected. I know I'm not going to be rejected. Talking about grief is one of the hardest things.
Yeah, you're not.
And it's a very lonely feeling.
Today I felt like it was not my first experience with grief with Mackenzie. I think my first like real eye-opening grief experience with Mackenzie was when Bailey died. Because she went to the vet with me and we walked out without Bailey, and she was like crying, asking for Bailey, and she could barely talk, and she was already saying Bayi. So cute, but it was so hard. And at that time, like, we didn't know she was not coming home with us. We thought we were going to pick her up later. So it was easy to tell her, like, it's okay. We're going to pick her up. We're going to bring her home. She's just having a little procedure. But then going back at 1 a.m. to say goodbye and leave without her was like my first like experience with her. But again, she was like a year old.
Yeah.
So then today was like a glimpse, because I guess grief's on the mind because of episodes. Yeah. Today, with all of us going to swim class, her instructor is out on leave, but we don't know like what's going on. We just get an email saying Kimberly is no longer your swim instructor, and this new person is now your instructor. It shows this new person's name on like the next however many swim classes are on the calendar. And you're like, well, I guess Kim's gone, right? Mm-hmm. And you're like, well, she got a new job, or, you know, I knew she was having shoulder issues, so maybe she's out with her shoulder, but, you know, you don't think she's dead. And she's not, thank God. But we're driving, and like to a 2-year-old, she's, how do you explain, like, you might see her, but then I'm over here trying to make sure I'm not lying, right? She might be back, because she might, or she might have got a new job, like, you're never going to see her again. And then we get to swim. She's asking, like, if she's going to go see Miss Kim. And it's like, no, we're not. And we get there. And the entire swim class, she's, like, questioning, where's Kim? Where's my teacher? Where's my teacher? Where's Kim? I kind of just thought, like, what are you supposed... She's old enough to comprehend she doesn't have the person she wants. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what to tell her.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, you heard me. I'm like,
yeah, because she says, I want Miss Kim.
Yeah, I want Miss Kim. Where's Miss Kim? Even at the end when we're leaving, she's like, where was my teacher? Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh gosh, like, I don't even have like the sad, fucked up emotions that when someone passes or a major grief event happens that fogs the way you think. I don't have that going on, and I don't even know how to talk to her. Right. You know, I'm doing my best, but oh well, we got a new instructor. Yeah. Like, what do you do?
Move on. But
it did make me think, if this was someone passing away, like, how do you go about facing it? What do you do? So I was thinking, like, for a child of that age, like under 5 years old, what are your steps? And my thought was very much like play therapy, right? Like, some counselors, I mean, if there's counseling available for her, and I can get someone to see someone so young, I think that'd be the route I'd go, because I don't know how to do it. Maybe family counseling, but I don't know if counselors see 2-year-olds. And if they do, it's probably play therapy, right? And I'm not saying I'm against it. I think that's great. That's also something we can do at home, is what I'm thinking, right? I could go through play therapy, and I guess that's kind of the route I went. Like, I was asking where she went. Yeah. She was asking me where she went, and then I thought, you know, I don't know. And then she just started to tell me, like, oh, she's going to be on the other side of the pool, is what she said. And I was like, oh, maybe. And it just made me think, like, when you're doing this, like, role play therapy with children, and someone passed, I mean, I don't know what religion you're teaching, but does my daughter think that every time she sees the moon and the stars, that it's her family, like, waving down at her? Is that what I'm going to be teaching? Or is it simply they went to heaven, like, they're on the other side of the pool, they're on the other side? And it just made me think, like, I really liked letting her tell me what she thought was going to happen when we got to swim. And that's something that I hope, when I am mind fogged through grief, I could remember to let her or children express what they think is actually happening. I remember learning, like, children don't necessarily feel sad because someone died, because there's no connection to that person like you have, or the comprehension isn't there.
Not the same,
It's not the same. So I don't think assuming to teach them to be sad is the correct way. Maybe let them know that you're sad, and maybe tell them why you're sad, but also make sure to tell them that it's okay if they're not sad. I think that would have helped me. I mean, I don't know, I don't think of anything specific, but just children, like, let me know it's okay to not feel what I think I'm supposed to feel, or not feel what you're feeling. Right? I think you mentioned when your dad passed, it made you happy to know there was people grieving and feeling sad because he deserves to be grieved that way. But that's got to feel confusing if you don't feel that way.
Very confusing.
But I think it should be really validating at a young age to know you can be unique and you can have these emotions and it doesn't make you wrong.
Right. It's not wrong that I'm not super sad that my dad is gone, because in reality, my mom was a prisoner of my dad because my dad was so in his heavy drinking. She could not leave him to go see her grandkid or her sisters that were out of town, because she's like, the minute I'm gone, he's going to fall, hit his head, it's a done deal. So it was almost like a release. And that's okay for me to know that now my mom has had quality of life, because she did not have quality of life before.
And you too.
And all of us.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Do I wish he was here to be a better man, that I can help him now that I've been on this journey? Of course. I think about that all the time. Maybe that's what makes me sad. That's the part that makes me sad, that I've now evolved and matured, that I think I would be able to talk to my father, because I couldn't even have an open conversation. Not even like, oh, so tell me about your childhood. I couldn't have any communication with my dad in that way. So that's what makes me sad and makes me cry. That I wish he was here, because now I'm in a chapter that I think he would be a little bit more open, and I would be not as, I don't know cómo se dice, as reserved to come to him. And so grieving comes in many different shapes and forms, and it changes.
Yeah.
I didn't feel this way before. Last year, I didn't feel this way. I had a breakdown and I cried for an hour, crying for my father, wishing that he was here so I could somehow try to help him. And so grieving changes, and it will continue to change.
Yeah. I read something last week after we recorded grieving. I don't know, maybe my FBI agent was doing his job and putting grieving memes up for me. But I read one and it said something like, the grieving brain is like someone going through withdrawals from drugs or an addictive thing. So say drugs or alcohol or whatever, someone's addicted to it because it gives them this dopamine, this joy. That's what we all want to remember, the good stuff, right? And then grief is like that because you've taken away the dopamine. You get excited to see your mom. You have this wonderful, safe feeling, assuming you have that feeling with your mom. And then it's taken away and you're like grieving because you no longer have that dopamine in your brain because you're going to see your mom. And it's your body withdrawing from the amount of dopamine it's used to having with that person.
Right.
Or with that, whatever that you're grieving. It was really interesting to me to think about that, because then I started thinking, why is it so, like, what's the right way to grieve? And we don't know what I don't know. Maybe I should have Googled it. But it just made me start to think, there's people, so my roommate passed last November. Her birthday was yesterday.
Gosh, I can't believe it's going to be a year.
I know, November 1st. Jeez. Wow. I see people, and I've seen this my whole life, but I've seen a lot of her stuff because her birthday, her passing date is coming up. So there's a lot of pictures. People are going to the cemetery. And I remember seeing that growing up. I mean, I went to the cemetery a lot and sat at the grave of a very close friend that passed in high school constantly. I mean, and maybe that was because I was semi-taught without being taught, going to my cousin's grave and like cleaning it with my grandma constantly. Like that was the norm. So then I started doing that with a friend when she passed, and then there was a few other friends buried in the same cemetery, and I would like take multiple flowers and like drop them and go find them and like spend hours getting flowers, going to each gravesite to put new flowers, stuff like that. And I remember it being like, it made me feel good, you know, like, oh, I'm here to talk with them and tell them what they're missing out on and stuff. And then before I would leave, I'd be like, whoa, I don't know why I'm telling you, because you could see all this, and, you know, and then I would leave. I feel like with this new thought of the dopamine idea, I was giving myself this dopamine hit, going to their gravesite, thinking about them and reviewing all these photos and stuff. Not to say that you shouldn't. There's just this idea of this concept now. And then I would leave and I would go through withdrawals and I would miss them so much.
Yes, and you would be so sad.
Until I could like adjust again.
Yeah.
And then a new date would come and then I would do it again. And I would like look at hours of pictures. With Mike, I did the same thing. I just like go through pictures and pictures of this old Mike. And then I would be so sad again and like feel withdrawals again. I didn't know there were withdrawals, but now with this new concept, that's how I'm thinking about it. I'm like, geez, that's kind of torture.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think it's wrong to review pictures and reminisce and tell stories, but maybe we have to do it in a balanced way, in moderation.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea, but I thought that was really interesting.
Well, it's a great way of a different perspective, right? And I think having the same perspective about grief keeps you in a certain state of mind. And when you can open up your perspective, maybe you can grieve differently and maybe do things differently. I mean, I don't know what they would be, but hearing things like that and it's clicking. There's a reason why it clicked in your heart.
Well, also, I'm not going to the cemetery. I'm not doing all these things because I don't feel. We're going back to like what I think I'm supposed to do and what I naturally feel like doing. I don't feel like I should be.
Okay.
I feel very comfortable knowing that their body is laid to rest, said goodbye. I did it when they passed. I went to the immediate funeral. We celebrated life. And then I know that like the part that's here is in all of our hearts.
Yeah.
And that they're in heaven. You know, like I don't going to see this headstone or this tree that was planted for them or going and sitting at our favorite spot. I no longer feel it's necessary to do these things. I don't think they're wrong to do.
No, everybody has their own.
But even for me, I think maybe I would do it. I just no longer feel the need to do it. And before, I felt if I didn't do it, I was being disrespectful.
Oh, I see.
So it's like, I mean, someone else might be like, this bitch is so disrespectful. But I'm glad that I have my validated thoughts now.
Yeah.
So I wanted to share those too.
And I wanted to share, I did see something on grief where it said, instead of getting stuck in the loss, what comes to mind when you shift your thoughts to the positive aspects of the person you lost? What values did they bring to your life that you want to carry on? And I think that would just hit so hard because there are some values that my dad had that I can carry on.
The way he did something.
Yeah, before he was sick with his disease, he was a hard worker. And maybe I get my work ethic from him. So I think grieving and that loss is so sad that it's so depressing. And at the same time, we can maybe at that moment we can think, what was the most valuable thing this person taught me and how can I continue it? How can I teach it to my kids and tell my kids, your grandma used to do this. She taught me this and it's important. I think that's a great way of honoring. Yeah, I don't think we honor enough. I think that's something that I want to make sure I try to focus on or try to zoom in is like, what can I honor instead of thinking of all the bad things? Because that's very easy. It's very easy to think about all the bad things or all the sad things.
For sure.
And I never really sit and try to think of all the good things. And so that's a little homework assignment I gave myself. How can I honor my father? So
I'm processing like what you just said. And it made me think, you know, I'm alive. So what is someone going to take and honor with like, what value am I going to leave? And they're going to honor, or I don't know how to word that, but that's, so I was thinking like a living legacy.
Yeah.
You know, like what you leave in the moments when you exist. What's going to remain after?
Oh, absolutely. I think that is probably my ultimate goal now that I've been on this healing journey is what can I leave behind? Because I want people to say, you know what? She had these values. And even though I didn't know her personally, I would love to continue these values for myself, for my children. And that would be the biggest blessing, more than financial stability, or I need my honey. Let me take that back. I need my financial stability. But yeah, what are we doing on Earth to leave a mark? For those of you who have reached out and said that it's really hard for you to grieve,
I think you're doing amazing. It's hard for all of us, and we all feel like we're doing it wrong.
Yeah, you're not the only one that thinks that you're doing it wrong, but this little exercise, I think it's a great way to honor and grieve.
And if you've been grieving like a champ, feel free to share your tips.
Yes, please.
And your homework is, what is your living legacy?
I'm
not there yet. I have to figure out how to grieve still.
Yeah, well, everything comes in steps. Everything comes in steps.
Maybe I'll do both at the same time.
Ooh, Superwoman. Continue. Shout out to all the new listeners. We have some regular listeners that have shared this podcast with their friends and their children, and I get these responses like, "Hey, I'm sharing your podcast. I told so and so to listen. We love you. Thank you so much for the love, and keep sharing because that's what we're here, is to share the little we know, and we are very open to receiving you sharing with us."
Just hit that subscribe button. See you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday.